Hydrograd by Stone Sour. Isn't it amazing how quickly things change? About a month ago, this was an album that had no stakes really behind it. This was a disc that all it needed to do was follow up House of Golden Bones very well in order to really keep the fans happy. We would all sleep at night and Corey Taylor could walk around with his head held high. But of course, with the storylines that have taken place over the past month, with Chad Kroeger saying that Stone Sour was Nickelback Light, and then Corey, Pied Piper of Microphones Taylor, responding back, now this is a disc that all of a sudden has to deliver. This is a disc that all of a sudden needs to really pop. What's amazing about it is that it was already done whenever this all came out, so essentially what Corey Taylor had put to print is going to have to be good enough. And all this disc really needs to do now, instead of follow up House and Golden Bones, in the eyes of many, is be better than Feed the Machine, although most have already cast their judgment prior to even hearing it. So, let's examine this and actually see, based off of the music, if it is indeed better than Feed the Machine, which was not that great of an experience earlier this month, despite the title track sounding like it had a lot of promise. Now, the first thing that you're going to notice on this album, whenever you check it out, is that there's 15 tracks on here. Now, I know all of you Stone Sour, Corey Taylor, Slipknot fans are like, hooray! 15 new tracks! While the rest of us are thinking, maybe that means that this is a concept album and there's a lot of small little intros to kind of keep things going, piece a couple of critical ideas together. Whenever you learn that that's not the case, that's whenever you start to sour a little bit and think, oh boy, this could be trouble right there on the horizon. So let's get right into it. Now, there is an introduction to start this one off, YSIF, which is 2 minutes in length, heading into Taipei Personality, which is a 5-minute track, which is actually it's tied for the second longest song on the album, along with Friday Nights. Not Pretty Nights. When has a night ever been pretty? Well, aside from a Starry Night, or, I don't know, is there a porn star with Night as their last name or first name? Maybe that would be one. There's ugly porn stars, though, so who knows. But the longest song, of course, we'll get to. This is a really nice introduction. I like the way that there's some aggression that's behind this, but still has and retains that Stone Sour charm to them. This is a band that's not meant to be 100% a heavy metal group. It's supposed to be more of a hard rock version of what Corey Taylor is all about. So you're going to get some of those aggressive vocals from him. But it's going to focus a lot on what he's able to do from a clean singing perspective. It's not one that's going to look to overshadow Slipknot whenever it comes to his heaviness and the brutality and everything like that. Instead, it's tapping in to more of that sensibility of like the 1980s, 1990s especially. Weirdly enough, on this album, there are moments where I swear to you, you could kind of blink and think that you're listening to a Foo Fighters song. We'll get to that, though. I like this track. I think it's a good starting point to get things kind of going. Knievel is landing going into the title track. I think the title track has a lot of power and punch. Really, really good single, in my opinion. I hope that it's one that does well. If you're looking for that number one single, though, I don't think you're going to grab it from any of those. You might actually get it from a track that's not until song number 8, which is Rose Red, Violet Blue. The song is dumb and so am I. This is just weird enough, but also solid enough. And this is where I say that you can almost swear that you're listening to a Foo Fighters song. Just take a listen once again to the way in which that verse structure sort of gets itself together. That doesn't so much have a Foo Fighters calling card to it, but the chorus, on the other hand, certainly feels like it's right in Dave Grohl's wheelhouse. And, Corey is actually delivering one of his better performances on this record on the vocal department. And overall, from a compositional standpoint, this just feels really lively, unique, and it's a lot of fun. I dig this track a lot. It's right there near the middle of the disc, so it is signifying perhaps a turning point or showcasing that this is an album that is trying to really kind of hold things together. Going right into Thank God It's Over, which is a heavier cut off of this disc, and at 3 minutes and 36 seconds is one of the shorter songs on this album that isn't the introduction, with Mercy being the shortest, and also a heavy cut. But that is a track that is first met by Sainte Marie, which is more of a ballady style song. It's got a slower veneer to it, almost like a little bit of that country stock that you hear from Nickelback, only done the Stone Sour way, which means that it resembles a bit more of a hard rock ballad or a hard rock sort of arena track that is meant to sort of get everybody together and singing and sort of on the same page. So it does really, it does its job, but I don't know if it's going to retain itself as really memorable enough to conjure this becoming a really big song by any stretch of the imagination. I think that Stone Sour on this album was really making peace with their mid-tempo arrangements, although there is one that we still haven't talked about. Now, whenever you get to songs such as Whiplash Pants and Friday Nights and Somebody Stole My Eyes, something is definitely wrong by now. Because if you notice, we would be talking about 14 tracks at this point, or we've been through 14 tracks after Somebody Stole My Eyes, and we're speaking only about 4 or 5 of those songs. We have not talked about a lot of the tracks individually, and that's because a lot of this stuff does begin to blend together. Now, there is variety on this album. Do not get the idea that based off of what I just stated, that things are starting to blend together. That variety does not exist. It's just something that the number of songs on here, the wealth of tracks on here, is what causes all of that variety to sort of become really, I guess, vanilla. Either that or almost expected. You've gotten the variety enough times from track to track that you're all of a sudden no longer surprised by what occurs next. The best way that I could describe this is on Mindcrime 1 by Queensryche. Everything felt like it had a purpose. Everything had a place. There were a lot of tracks that did sort of blend together and have the same mold, but they were done with enough uniquity, and really there was enough that was sort of meant to bridge things together, that it felt not only like a really great story, but also fantastic compositionally. But then you get to something like a Mindcrime 2 that tries to go out of its way in order to bring everything home. You really keep the story going, a story that really didn't need a second part to begin with, and tries to sort of varietize itself to death and actually makes an album that sounds very sort of bland in the process. This album isn't bland. Hydrograd is not bland by any stretch, but it is one where all of these ideas are starting to blend, they're starting to mold together, you're getting way too much of the playbook at once. This is an album that I feel probably could have been cut by about 2 or 3 tracks, and it may have had all of the real classic feel of House of Golden Bones 1, which was just a terrific display of what this band is able to do. The songs I would probably cut is probably Somebody Stole My Eyes. I'd probably cut maybe Fabulous, and maybe Knievel Has Landed. I wasn't a huge fan of it. I do like the fact that Corey has some great choruses all littered around this record, but it's just... maybe I would keep Knievel Has Landed and actually ditch Mercy. I don't know. It's really hard to say. But I do feel that this is an album that could have really gained a lot from not having that length kind of bog it down and oversaturate it. This is what happens whenever you have too many quote-unquote good ideas, which means that you don't have that personal filter to recognize that, hey, you know, maybe this is something we should table for later. We might be able to make it into something more special than what we are giving it right now. Now, when the fever broke, the very final track off of this album is 6.5 minutes, and this is the longest song, as you might imagine, and also one that starts off with a soft piano introduction, and you think it's going to be pretty unique, and it does boast a lot of very interesting properties and very interesting ideas. I don't know if the time was utilized at its best, but it is one that certainly gets the feeling, the emotion down, so in that regard, I don't think it needs any sort of polish. I think it's just fine the way that it is. I just feel like maybe a little bit more could have been delivered in the 632. They perhaps just figured that the composition was best left with a little bit of open air and a little bit of soft idea. So, I don't know. I like this as an idea for the finale. I think this does leave you with something to remember this album by, as opposed to it feeling like just another one of the countless tracks that came before it. So this is an album that's definitely better than Feed the Machine. It's one that does get oversaturated by its own overabundance of tracks and ideas. but at the same time, fairly decent effort. Not House of Golden Bones Part 1 or even 2 worthy by any stretch of the imagination. This is not their best album. But Hydrograd does at least still make the grade. It is a 17 out of 30. This is a disc that I feel has a lot of great things going for it, and with multiple listens, like by the end of the year, you may be looking at that score improving a little bit, but as of right now, the oversaturation just becomes a really big piss point that just sort of bogs down this album from potentially getting up close to that 20 range. But I don't know what you think about Hydrograd by Stone Sour. I almost said Slipknot. God damn. I know they're working on new material, supposedly. Let me know in the comments below. My name is coverkillernation, and I will talk to you guys next time. Take care.